Sam Altman.
Ja, das wird richtig gut. Und damit er auch ein richtig gutes Interview hinkriegt, haben wir ihm 2 Leute zur Seite gestellt oder gegenüber.
Die auch richtig gut sind.
Genau, die richtig gut sind. Und jetzt müssen wir mit Alex Blania sprechen, dem deutschen Gründer, und freuen uns sehr, dass die beiden ihm jetzt ein paar Fragen stellen und euch ein bisschen näher bringen, was ist eigentlich das Projekt und was soll das Ganze und ja, wie geht's weiter? Mit ihm sprechen
Sabrina Kessler, Finanzjournalistin, und Julius Nagel, Krypto-Experte.
Ja, den habt ihr eben schon gesehen.
Haben wir eben schon gesehen.
Genau, also
herzlich willkommen.
Viel Spaß.
Okay, hello everyone. Hi Alex. Thanks so much for taking the time. Yes, I really appreciate you chatting with us today. Since we only have 20-25 minutes, I would say let's just jump right in. Maybe just do a little elevator pitch and just tell us who you are and explain a little bit about Tools for Humanity and Worldcoin.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Sorry, I couldn't make it in person this time. It was unfortunate. I'm currently in San Francisco, and then actually next week I will be in Germany, and Monday, Tuesday, unfortunately, only for a day. So I'm Alex Blania. I grew up in Germany, close to Nuremberg, and I studied actually my undergrad in Erlangen, both physics and industrial engineering in parallel, and then I went to Los Angeles, Caltech. And I went into, within my physics studies, I went into deep learning back then. So back then it was not called AI yet, back then it was deep learning. And it was right around the time when deep learning was about to become, or like clearly was becoming very successful. It was GPT-2 was right around the time. And it was also when within physics, deep learning became a thing and AI became a thing. And so I somewhat got lucky because I ended up in a kind of a theoretical physics division that went really deep into AI at Caltech. And so I was somewhat exposed to that. And through that, we still don't really know actually where it came from, but maybe the OpenAI team knew me, maybe through something else. Sam, and back then his co-founder, reached out to me about the idea of Worldcoin. And it was actually, I think back then it was a standard recruiting outreach. I think probably dozens or hundreds of people got that email about Worldcoin, because actually back then the idea was to find a technical co-founder. So Sam and Max already started working on Worldcoin. Sam was of course working on OpenAI already since I think 3 years, and was essentially thinking like what else to do in parallel. And the initial pitch was really, and it did not change, but the initial pitch was that he believed already back then that AGI will come in the coming decades. And so AI will continuously accelerate and get increasingly powerful. But as a result of that, there will be a huge impact on the society, economy, and the internet more broadly. And so the simple idea was, well, what kind of technologies will we need on a global scale to actually handle that and react to that, and what would be the most important things? And so he started a company called Tools for Humanity, which was a very kind of simple descriptive name. And the two main problems to really focus on back then, we thought of were how can we economically reach everyone in the world, and how can we actually distinguish or give everyone some form of identity on the internet that will somewhat be AI safe. And why those two is because if this progress continues, we might need to try completely new things. Economically, it might be something like universal basic income. It actually might be something like universal compute. So it might be that actually like some amount of compute becomes a fundamental human right. And in any case, finding ways to actually distribute that to as many people as possible might become very important. And the second one is that the internet more broadly, we think will change, where, I mean, Elon is talking a lot about on Twitter, on X, that there's a lot of bots on the platform, but we think that's just really the beginning. And so much of our democracy, so much of where we get our information from is on the internet and social media and many other places. And that whole dynamic will completely shift as AI will start to kind of be much more of the internet traffic. While it's probably currently less than 5%, it will be more than 90% in the coming years. And so we will need to find a way to actually distinguish humans from AI on the internet. It's a very simple statement. And we think that it actually will become a very important topic. And so we started working on 3 products. One is World ID, which is exactly that. So it's a way to essentially give everyone some form of proof of humanness, proof of humanity that can actually work global and preserves privacy. The second one is Worldcoin, a digital currency that launches by giving ownership in it to every person. And that actually gives everyone financial access. That was the idea. And then the third is World App, which is just a non-custodial wallet that actually lets you use those first 2 products. And we are now on it since 4 years. We raised $250 million in the first 2 years, mostly here in Silicon Valley, from people like Andreessen Horowitz and Khosla Ventures and many others. And then last year in July, we launched. And now the company is around 200 people. And we try to grow really fast. But it's a very complicated thing because you have both a complicated technology stack, you have like a global operation, need to deal with a lot of regulators. So it's a very busy time, but also very exciting. So that's the quick elevator pitch.
So Alex, we already heard it in the intro and you just mentioned it. The idea is you use the orb to basically scan the iris to create this proof of humanhood, right? That's not the easiest thing to market to people, I guess. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about why did you choose the iris and the orb, and how exactly does it work?
Yeah, so basically the first year when we started working on the project, we just did a lot of research, and so we essentially looked at all the different ways you could solve the problem. So, and just for what it's worth, back then it was not consensus view that it actually will be a problem to solve, right? It was like 4 years ago, people did not talk about AGI other than kind of a small group. So back then it was somewhat of a far stretch. But anyways, we when you want to solve this proof of humanness problem, you actually solve a different problem than your iPhone, for example, does. Because when you use your iPhone, what it does, it re-authenticates that you're again the same person using that phone. So it does a one-to-one comparison. There's an embedding stored on my phone of essentially how does Alex look like. A new embedding gets created if I try to log in, and then I can just start using my phone. And it's actually fairly easy to solve because it's really hard for me to look exactly like you, Julius, for example. But if you want to solve the proof of humanness problem, we need to make sure that one person is unique among, let's say, 1 billion or 2 billion or 3 billion and eventually 8 billion people. So it goes from 1 to 1 to 1 to n and 1 to many. And so very simply speaking, other things like face or fingerprint, all of those things would essentially break down at that scale. So we came to the conclusion that if you fundamentally believe that this is an important problem to solve, that will be the only way to actually solve it. And that's also why actually many governments are using that technology. So it's not a new thing. It's like, for example, last week I was in Singapore. They have that at the airport. Many governments use it at very, very large scale. And we just believe that actually something like this should exist, and it should be open source. It should ideally be decentralized. And we came to the conclusion that Iris is the only modality that actually can work at scale, and that custom hardware will be the only thing that works, which was a very painful insight back then, because, I mean, it probably still sounds crazy to you, but back then it definitely also sounded crazy to us. This idea that you need to build custom hardware and distribute it all over the world is not an easy thing to do. But we just came to the conclusion that that's the only thing that would work. And just quickly, how does it work? And just to talk about the most important features. The first thing it does is, so it's a physical device. It's called the orb. It's 20 centimeters big, like a basketball, essentially. We basically spent $50 million R&D to kind of build the whole device ground up. So there's a custom lens in there. There's many sensors in front. And the first thing it does, of course, it checks that you're not actually trying to fool the system. So you're an actual person. You're not a display. You don't wear contact lenses. All these kinds of things. So there's multiple sensors in front that just check that. with actual neural networks on the device. So the data actually doesn't leave the device for that. Then it takes a picture of the eye, calculates a unique iris code out of that, and actually deletes the images by default. And that iris code is then sent, which we actually will announce this week, to multiple parties. So it's a multi-party computation, and gets compared to all other previous users. If that comparison is successful, what you as an individual actually do is you do a zero knowledge proof, which you use, I think you're very familiar with, to actually stay anonymous in that set. But so essentially what it allows you to do is it allows you to do a proof that you're an actually unique person amongst many without revealing your identity or your biometric data, which we thought would be important.
And in order for this to really have the impact that you envision, I guess you kind of have to solve this chicken egg problem, right? You need to onboard many users or humans in order for the network to really be at a big scale, and at the same time you need to provide a value add for people to onboard to the protocol, to the network. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you currently tackle this problem. Do you focus on the supply side, on the demand side, and maybe what are current use cases that sort of if I live in Berlin, if I want to onboard, what can I use my World ID for today? Yeah,
that's exactly, I think, the key problem that we try to tackle right now. And so that's actually a big piece of why the token exists. Actually, starting from the beginning, going back again 4 years, there was like a big piece of the fundamental puzzle of the fundamental idea is that and you might remember that somewhat well, when PayPal launched back then, the initial launch of PayPal, I think they raised $70 million of VC funding, and they used a large part of that to actually send around emails with links to your friends. And if you clicked on that email, you actually ended up with $20 of balance in your PayPal account. And they spent, I think, more than 80% of their venture funding just on that to get to the first million users. And as you correctly said, that's just very important for these networks, otherwise they're just useless. An identity network or a payment network with one user just doesn't do anything, but there's some critical number you need to get to. And what is so interesting about crypto is that these networks are valued at tens of billions of dollars, right? So the fully loaded market cap of Worldcoin is now $50 billion. And what we try to do is essentially use the majority of that to actually bootstrap the network. So 75% of these tokens, of these $50 billion, will actually be given out to users. When you sign up, you receive a certain amount of Worldcoin in your wallet. You can send it to your friends, you can sell it, whatever it is, but that is a kind of a bootstrapping incentive actually to get the network going. And it's not, in a PayPal case, it's not tens of millions, but it's tens of billions. So it should go quite far. And so that's the first part of the answer. That's the supply side. On the demand side, we do many things. We talk to governments. We talk to many of the large companies. Currently, you can already use Discord, Shopify, Telegram, many of these. I think it's still limitedly useful, to be honest, just because the network is still somewhat small. I think we're not 5 million people. I hope when we talk again in a year, it looks different. But yeah, we will have many exciting things to announce there, I think. But I think so supply side, I think, is the token and actually rapidly expanding into many markets. Demand side is just talking to many of the biggest tech companies, you know.
There are some voices out there criticizing Worldcoin in terms of data privacy. Some countries even suspended Worldcoin recently, or at least halted it. How do you deal with those setbacks, and what do you think about how you want to go forward in terms of this regulatory pressure?
Well, we just work with regulators. It is we just explain what we actually do and explain the means of it. I think it's somewhat not really surprising. It's somewhat what we expected. I think like whenever you do something like that, that is, I mean, again, it's a Chrome. First of all, I appreciate all of this. It's a Chrome orb that uses iris scans and distributes a global cryptocurrency that is worth $50 billion. Like there's of course many things that I think need explanation here. So we just actually work with regulators and work through that one by one. So since I really am very, very certain this is fundamentally probably the most privacy-preserving way to solve any problem like this, and much more privacy-preserving than most of the tech products you use. I don't think this is a long-term concern. I think in the short term, we just actually need to work through these issues and just actually explain what we do. And that's not unheard of, right? I mean, I think even ChatGPT was banned in Italy, so we will work through it.
Yeah, maybe just following up on that. Where do you see still limitations in terms of how it can be applied today? Maybe I want to get to one specific use case. We have an election year in the US coming up, and sort of historically, there's always been issues with social media content, right? And I think with recent advancements in AI, we can only expect this to be more crazy this time around. Do you have any plans to already, use this to sort of leverage World ID and the idea of Worldcoin this year, or is this more something where you might even hope for sort of more AI issues coming up that you can say, hey, guys, this is the solution. We're ready to solve it.
Certainly, actually. So I think you're right. I think the U.S. election will probably be kind of the prime time of that issue, because I think also the U.S. is uniquely worried about influence from other countries into their elections. I mean, we had it in the last election with kind of potential Russian influence. I think AI is just 1,000xing essentially that potential, and I think actually makes it a very real threat, not just an idea. But then actually it's election year. I think there's 8 major elections going on, so it's very top of mind for most of the politicians, most of the governments we actually meet with and talk to. We have a little bit of a timing problem in that sense that I think just rolling out in the US and reaching all major cities is just physically and logistically really, really hard to do. And even our manufacturing does not actually is not able to push through there. So what we do is we just actually talk to governments, we talk to regulators, explain the problem. We work on a couple of publications right now to actually just explain what would be other ways to also help. But yeah, it's definitely driving our R&D efforts, but also actually our rollout efforts in many countries around the world right now.
How do you plan on making money? What's your revenue model here?
So first of all, we as a founder, Tools for Humanity, our investors, we actually hold part of that token, of that currency. And so for our investors so far, I think it was a very good investment. So there's no immediate pressure. Also, the company has a pretty heavy balance sheet. So we have quite some years to go without any pressure to do anything. And I think that's somewhat important, because something like this will only work if it is actual infrastructure. So the goal of this, and it's much harder, of course, because it's hardware, but it has to become a utility. It has to become public infrastructure that is open source. And a company making profits is somewhat the opposite of that. So the network itself will make profits. There's going to be a layer 2 that I think will have a lot of transactions. There will be potential fees we can charge for World ID. So network profits is different from company profits. We very much care about network profits, but not about company profits.
Okay. Just want to reiterate something you said earlier, that basically today, I think Worldcoin, a fully diluted market cap is around 60 billion, more or less, right? Prices are volatile. And you said that you want to use 75% of that to incentivize user growth, which is arguably the largest incentive program ever, or airdrop ever, at least. Yep. So that would definitely help with user growth. Maybe you can share some current numbers, yes. Like how fast are you guys growing right now? But then also, I recently read that you see a lot of growth in developing countries in Africa. Do you think that people are only signing up to get these tokens, and maybe that's the case, maybe that's not even bad after all, because once you sort of onboarded them on the platform and they find out about the utility and sort of become recurring users or whatever in the long term?
Yeah, so I actually just come back from a little world tour, and I'm kind of in between of it. So just kind of have a week here in San Francisco and then go back on the road again. So before that I was in Asia and Argentina, and going forward it will be the other side of the world essentially. And so we're currently at around 10 million users in the app, 5 million monthly active, and so it is, I think, now the third largest non-custodial wallet in the world. So I think that itself is already pretty good. But of course, to actually get to where we want to, it's far off. So I think like probably at a 50 to 100 million kind of sign-up scale, I think things will get very, very interesting. And I think networks will build out quite a bit. But then just given the nature of it, it's very country specific. So for example, in Argentina, I think we now have 5% of the whole country. And over 15% of Buenos Aires. So like basically in Buenos Aires, I think most people know about Worldcoin. And there is so in terms of who signs up, I think it's basically always all early crypto and tech adopters in every city I go to, just because they're interested in it. And then of course, a large number of people that sign up for the token. And I think that's totally fine. Again, this was the fundamental idea. It would be concerning if not. And to the other part of your question, in terms of rollout, it is, so currently the biggest markets are Argentina. Europe, actually Germany is growing quite quickly right now. It is, and soon will be Japan and South Korea. And then in Africa, it was Kenya. We halted operations there because we got asked to. I think we will resume there very soon. So that will be probably the biggest market in Africa. But I think what you understand is it's called Worldcoin. So what we actually did is we just looked at the world and looked at what are the kind of the most important markets for each region. And so we thought in LATAM it would be Argentina and Chile, and soon we will launch also Mexico and Brazil. For Asia, it clearly is Japan and South Korea. For Europe, Germany and Portugal, and soon also Poland. So we just really try to cover the world.
I think we only have 3 minutes left. Let me ask one final thing. OpenAI's mission is to ensure that AI benefits all of humanity. So what's your mission statement, and where do you see yourself in maybe 10, 20 years?
We actually currently discuss this because we are thinking if we should have a mission statement that actually just reflects the AI perspective much more. But currently it is building the largest financial identity network on the planet. Yeah.
Good. I think that's the big goal. Really appreciate you being here. Best of luck. And yeah, thanks so much.
Amazing. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex. All the best.
Good.
Gut.
Dank, vielen Dank. So, der Saal füllt sich und füllt sich. Das ist sehr gut. Denn jetzt kommt mein Fangirl-Moment.
Und auch mein Fangirl-Moment. Ich habe es dir gestern schon gesagt.
Ja.
Mann, waren das aufregende Minuten da gerade hinter der Bühne.
Ja, es war so ein bisschen Krimi, weil Scott saß fest auf der Conference Stage, ne, und wollte dann hinkommen und dann war irgendwo eine Demo und er hat ein Video geschickt, joggenderweise, weil er es hier einigermaßen rechtzeitig hinschaffen wollte.
Jetzt ist er da. Also wir freuen uns wirklich sehr. Es ist auch für uns bei Finance Forward, glaube ich, eine richtige Ehrung, dass Kara Swisher und Scott